Should screenwriters hate ChatGPT? Hey everybody, I'm Matt Weiner for Fade In, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. Should screenwriters have a blanket hatred for anything associated with ChatGPT, and should they shame anybody who has the gall to use it as an analytic tool? Spoiler alert, you know my answer is no, you shouldn't hate ChatGPT, and you shouldn't shame anybody for using it, but I understand the issue. I understand the concerns and I want to talk about them. They really boil down to two things. One, if you utilize ChatGPT or any AI at all, you are essentially destroying the fundamental essence of screenwriting, of storytelling, that you are destroying the art of storytelling. The other group of people think that if you put anything in ChatGPT, they're stealing your information and your IP, and you have no privacy, and you're just feeding the model, and you're part of the problem. I actually think there's a third concern, which is more valid than either of the other two, which is the environmental impacts of using ChatGPT, which is something that I'm aware of and that I'm conscious of, and that I think about while using ChatGPT and the amount I use it and what I use it for and when I turn it on and off. Because hopefully, the environmental impacts of ChatGPT lessen over time. But until they do, I think it's you can't escape that truth either, and you can't pick and choose what issues you agree with and don't agree with. But for this video, I'm going to focus on the two main complaints. All right, number one, destroying the essence and art form of storytelling. This is a big issue, and that I agree with. Generative AI is not a joke, and it is here, and it's not going away, and we have to protect ourselves as writers against it. It's one of the main reasons why there was a strike, why the Writers Guild went on strike. But ChatGPT doesn't have to do that. When you're using it strategically for coverage and analysis, you have to look at the alternatives. When you're writing a draft and you're trying to improve it, where are you going for notes? Where are you going for coverage? And what are you using that coverage for? If you go to Indie Film Hustle or Blacklist, you're spending over $100 for coverage for some anonymous reader to take a month to read your script and then supply you with, if it's an Indie Film Hustle coverage, a page of notes. If it's Blacklist, it's 3 paragraphs worth of notes. Either way, you're paying for this service. You have no idea who this person is who's reading your material, if they identify with your genre, with your voice, with anything. What I do know is that you're paying for it. And if you're an unestablished writer, like I am, like most of us are, we don't have a lot of, extra money laying around to waste on coverage. And if we're writing for competition season, we don't have a lot of time either. So what are you getting back? I'm going to show you examples from my own work, coverage from Indie Film Hustle, coverage from Blacklist, and I'm going to show you the problem. If you get coverage back that has suggestions in it, say it says, like, I think there's a weakness in this part of your story, but what if you did this, right? That's a suggestion. Now, if you act on that suggestion, who generated that idea? You or the reader, right? Why are you relying on that suggestion? How is that any different than AI running the same analytical process and saying, you have a weakness in your character arc, I suggest you do A, B, and C? To me, when the computer does it, it's generative AI. I will never have the computer generate a single word or suggestion for me to change my material, my screenplays. What I will use it for is analyzing my script and pointing out the strengths and weaknesses so that I can address them. Okay? And it's instantaneous, and it's relatively free from a cost perspective. We're not talking environmental. We're talking cost perspective. So why wouldn't I use it? And let's be honest with ourselves. Even before ChatGPT existed, we've been writing to a formula. If you ever read Save the Cat or Story or Sid Field's Screenplay, or were writing for competition and you're worried about, the first 5 pages or your opening image or your first 20 pages and your hook and all that kind of stuff, I hate to break it to you, but you're writing to a formula. You're already doing it. The artistry, the essence of screenwriting, the essence of storytelling comes in how you do that. It's not the formatting, it's not the structure, it's the story and the voice and what you have to say as a writer, as an individual, and as an artist. Using ChatGPT as a tool and setting it up in a way, which is what I've done and what I'm showing you to do at home over the course of these videos, is to get a factual analysis of your screenplay. And I'm going to show an example of that here. And I'm going to compare it to the coverage that I get from Indie Film Hustle or from Blacklist. Using it like that does not generate a word, does not generate content at all or substance at all. But it does identify weaknesses for you to address before you send it out into the world. Because once you pay that money, that entrance fee to a competition, and you put your screenplay out there in the world, you don't get to take it back and you don't get to change it. And if you don't advance that year, guess what? You got to wait another year to try again. So, how are you going to spend that time? How are you going to spend your effort? And where are you going to put that effort? What is generative AI and what does it look like? Here we are in ChatGPT 5, and I'm going to have it write a beat sheet for me for a horror film. I want you to generate a beat sheet like Save the Cat for a horror film. I want it to be a cult of vampires who use a wellness center in Arizona as a way to lure victims to their location and kill them. The main vampire is a charismatic, what do you call them? Um, uh, life coach. Life coach. Uh, the only surviving person at the end is a uh, former drug addict. Parentheses. You pick the gender and race. I want a high body count. I want the tone to be fun but scary. Comps would be Tremors and From Dusk Till Dawn. Create full beat sheet and act breakdown, as well as summary for the entire script. Okay, that's the entire prompt. I'm going to hit enter, and what you're going to see is an entire film written by ChatGPT, but prompted by me. So who's responsible for this output, me or the computer? All right, let's see what happens. Return. Oh, look, they even gave it a title, Sunset Reset. Log line. At an exclusive Arizona wellness retreat, a vampire cult harvests guests under the guise of a transformational healing. A 6 months sober Latina Rhea Ortiz, 28, resists the charismatic life coach who leads the cult and turns the retreat's biohacking toys into weapons. Only Ray walks out. Tone and comms, pulp energy, brisk gore off screen or implied, gallows humor, tremors, camaraderie from dusk till dawn escalation. Core cast. It's got a whole cast here. Save the Cat beat sheet for an approximate 105 page count. Opening image. I'm not going to read all this because I don't care. And here's an act breakdown. Act 1, Act 2, Act 2B, Act 3. Body count, guests 14, staff acolytes 6, total deaths 22, only Ray survives. 1 page story summary and production notes. All I did was tell it that I wanted a vampire movie set at a wellness center, and it gave me an entire screenplay. That is generative AI. That is awful. And that's what we're all afraid of. But that is not what I am using ChatGPT for, and it's not what you should use it for. So now let's compare it to a rubric that I created and a scorecard that I created, and I'm going to have it run um, one of my screenplays through it to see what its coverage looks like and whether or not it gives me suggestions. What you're looking at here is a fresh ChatGPT conversation where I have uploaded things that I have created, and I'll walk through them in another video. But essentially, this is my version of modern competition expectations, right? What readers in Nickel, Page, Austin, what these readers look for in a screenplay in order to give you the best chance of advancing to the next round, to the quarters, to the semis, to the finals. And I created this rubric, and the rubric is a set of rules and a scorecard, which is a 1 through 5 for all the categories. And then I have a master prompt, which tells it not to give suggestions, to be analytical, and to give reasonings for everything in it. Then I uploaded the screenplay into chunks, into the thing. They're all here. You can see them on the bottom as these text files. I just haven't hit return yet, because once I do, it's automated. It's just going to run through it. Just as a note, the script that I put in here is sexually explicit. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's called Tramp, and it's about a gigolo and being framed for murder. So in case you're sensitive to that kind of thing, maybe don't watch this. I don't know, but it's a neo noir erotic thriller that I'm currently workshopping for next year's competition season, being 2026's competition season. Let's see what happens. Okay. And the rubric, just so you know, the rubric was created by having ChatGPT do deep research into whatever it could find online and reputable sources. You always need ChatGPT to cite its sources, reputable sources on what readers look for and how they score scripts. I used coverage that I've received on a number of screenplays, including through Script Top Gauntlet. I made it to level 3 on Script Top Gauntlet for a script. Blacklist coverage, Indie Film Hustle, We Screenplay, independent human readers who I trust. I'll go through that in another video on who you should and maybe should not trust with your screenplays for the money that you're paying for coverage. I fed it all of this stuff for it to create a rubric. So I'm not taking things from other people. This rubric is created from the dozens and dozens and dozens of coverages that I've received over the years from these human services. So let's see what happens when I press return. Here we go. Let's see. I'm not going to read through it because it might be sexual in nature again. So we'll just look at what it does here. It took all of my chunks here, page 1 through 19, and it scored it on premise, structure, characters, dialogue, and theme. And I got pretty good 4 out of 5s on them. Marketing, 4 out of 5 for a total, and it does it for every chunk. Premise and originality, structure and pacing, characters, dialogue, theme, marketability. What you can see here as I go through it, no suggestions. I'm not being told to do anything with it or how to fix it. Here we go through all 5 chunks, 107 pages, and then the overall observation. Premise is competitive and clear. Structure lands 2 strong turns. Dialogue is economical and character true. Themes of gaze, power, commodification recur via Mondrian, Balthus, and Sexworth candor. I didn't tell it that, right? But those were the themes that I was pushing, hoping that would be identified, and the computer identified them. Now I'm going to ask it something targeted. Identify weaknesses in character, motivation. All I'm doing is having it identify weaknesses. I'm not asking it to suggest any fixes. When you look at blacklist coverage, right? Oh, here we go. But I'll tell you, when you look at blacklist coverage, it gives you strengths, weaknesses, and marketability. Honestly, I could care less about the strengths. I could care less about the marketability. The only thing that I could use as a call of action is something that I could work on, or weaknesses. So that's one paragraph. And if you're lucky enough to have a reader who actually sat down and thought about your script, when I had blacklist look at the script, the reader got the name of my main character wrong. I mean, what does that tell you, right? But the weaknesses identified were valid. I'm not going to say they weren't, right? They made me think. Motivation gaps by character. I'm just gonna go to Amelia because that's who I had talked about. states, I don't let my feelings cloud my judgment, then shelters Xander, undresses and cares for him, and pursues off book action. The pivot lacks an explicit internal trigger. Prison visits and art book ritual set guilt and personal stake, but the link to current case behavior isn't made explicit. Who Hector is to her and why the case reactivates that wound stay implied. The Laredo backstory explains a vigilante edge, but it arrives after multiple boundary crossings, so earlier choices can feel like convenience rather than necessity. So it looks like the order of my reveals might be clouding the logic of my script. It's kind of what I thought. Amelia's decision making is a little cloudy, and this is giving me that. Now if I ask for strengths, it would give me strengths as well, but like I said, I don't care about that. No suggestions. No suggestions. I want to show you Indie Film Hustle said about this script in comparison. Here it is. Here's bulletproof script coverage, indie film market, Tramp rating, pass. Look at these scores. Man, these are awful scores. These are awful scores, right? Uh, a pass. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts my feelings. Opening thoughts. Okay. They tell me how much I can make the movie for. All right. How are they experts in that? I don't know. I don't know who the reader is. It's all anonymous. I have no idea who this person is, but I'll just accept this fact, everything that they have to say, and then spend 3 months rewriting my script because of one person's notes. Amelia Mendoza, why is she risking her career? Why is she so invested? I agree with that, right? Those questions remain unanswered. But then look, to enhance Amelia's narrative arc, the script needs to deepen her personal connection to the case. A simple yet effective solution would be to insert a confessional moment where she reveals her personal failure, or perhaps her own brush with exploitation. Such a revelation would ground her obsession, providing emotional stakes for her pursuit of justice beyond professional duty. Another flaw is with another character. Reintroducing Dale as a present volatile figure in the third act would reinvigorate the narrative. Perhaps Dale is spiraling and paranoid and reaching out to Xander to justify his choices, claiming that the system left him no alternative. This confrontation would allow Dale's character arc to come full circle, transforming him from a charming rogue into a tragic figure. Those are concrete suggestions. Now, if I went back into my screenplay and I did these things, where's that content coming from? Is it coming from me or is it coming from this anonymous reader? And and should I be as concerned about that as I am about generative AI? I don't know. I don't know. All I want to know are what the weaknesses are. I don't want your opinion on them. And I don't want any suggestions on how to fix them. That's my job. I'm the writer. This is my coverage for a script, All Things Broken. You can see the badge here says that it's in the top 1% of all projects on Blacklist. Woo! Yeah, what is that guy? It gets me on some lists, I guess. Maybe I'm eligible for Nickel. I'll find out in September. That'd be great if I made it to Nickel, since they're now the gatekeepers for all scripts to be in that competition. 6 evaluations. When you get an 8 or a 9 on Blacklist, they give you free evaluations, right? I got 2 8s and a 9 to start out with, and I was feeling pretty good about it. I should have stopped. I should have stopped at that point, because look, here's a 9. Okay, um, that made me feel pretty good. Then I got a 5. Same script, same draft, 2 different readers. So let's see what the 5 says. Weaknesses. There's no real subversion or catharsis here now. Thank you for your opinion. It's disappointing that we don't really know what is next for Alice, let alone for Tammy, and we have to wonder how the senator will react to her husband's fate. So while there's no suggestion there, what the reader's saying is they want to know what happens to John McClane after he goes home at the end of Die Hard. Um, did he have a bologna sandwich and a cup of milk? Did Paulina stay the night? They want to know what happens afterwards. I wrote the script specifically with an ending that didn't address those issues or those questions. This reader just didn't respond to it. If this was the first read that I got, the script would be dead, and I would think it was horrible. Thankfully and fortunately, uh, I got a 9, and this is the same script that made it to almost past the gauntlet. I was one vote away from clearing the gauntlet on a prior version of the script. So what's the lesson to be learned here? Human coverage is subjective and inconsistent and exposes you to suggestions. You can't control it. With ChatGPT, you can literally control everything. Don't be scared of the tool, just learn how to use it. The second issue is privacy, and this is just misinformation or lack of knowledge or whatever. You you are at more at risk privacy wise shopping on Amazon or running a Google search than you are using ChatGPT with the privacy settings set the way that I instruct you to set them. ChatGPT wants to train the model. It's not ad based. It's not trying to sell you anything. It's trying to train the model with your data. You can opt out of that. You should opt out of that. Once you do, and once you set your memory settings and everything else, you are working within a closed universe of data, of knowledge that you can ask it anything that you want to ask it. Once you open up the door and you train the model, we got issues, right? Because that's my intellectual property. That's my stuff. I don't want it out in the world. If you're on Amazon or anything that's ad based, they're collecting all your information, your personal information, credit card information, your likes, so that they could target advertising to you, all this other stuff. The risks are so much higher for everything else that you do on the internet, if you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or anything, than they are by using ChatGPT. And I'll show you in another video the comparison, the risk comparison between the privacy settings that I have on ChatGPT, the default settings, and other web-based apps like Amazon and Google and all that kind of stuff. The point is, privacy is not the issue. If you use it right, generative AI is not an issue. This is about fear. You cannot be scared of ChatGPT because it's not going anywhere and it's only going to get more powerful. Which means that we as screenwriters, as artists, must know how to use it and how to leverage it so that we don't become an anachronism, so that we don't become collateral damage in this war between AI and artistry. For Fade In, original screenplays read by the author, I'm Matt Weiner, and I'll see you next page.